This basically confirms it for the Phoenix Suns as a new report just dropped from Brian Windhorst relating around the Suns center trade piece this offseason in Kevin Durant. And we're going to have to dive in and explore what it means for the Phoenix Suns this offseason and for Brian Gregory going into this offseason, what his big task at hand is going to be for this Phoenix Suns team. So we're going to dive in and explore that and explore some potential teams that could be interested in the direction that the Suns are heading. We'll be deciding all of that and more on this episode of Suns Digest. I am Bruce Veliz, and you guys have been absolutely fantastic showing your love and support on this channel. I really do appreciate it. Hope you guys are excited for the live stream today. As of right now, we'll be going live in right about an hour and a half with my lucky guest in Ben Garcia. So once again, we're going to be having a great time over here. So I hope you guys can come by to discuss the Phoenix Suns and hear Ben's thoughts on this Suns off season. Without further ado, we're going to dive into today's video at hand today. So make sure to grab that snack and let's get into it, as this makes sense for the Phoenix Suns here ultimately, and I think this is where they are going to really kind of go into place this season here, as we see this new report from Brian Windhorst come in that lets us know that he's 98% sure that Kevin Durant is not going to be a Sun next season. And Brian Windhorst was kind of talking about Kevin Durant a lot on ESPN around the trade deadline when Durant was ultimately going to be traded. We all know he thought he was going to be moved initially, and then what basically happened was that Kevin Durant stayed. So with this news, it does, point to that Durant is most likely going to be heading out. And even John Gambadoro had a little bit of a tweet the other day where he was replying to someone's basically saying that Durant isn't going to be here. So in all cases, it does point that I don't think he is going to be returning to the Valley next season, as once again, the Suns are in this second apron, and they are stranded in this second apron. And with Bradley Beal's contract, even with waiving Vasilij Micić and Cody Martin's deals, the Suns will still be in the first apron and will need to get at least some assets in return to fill out some roster spots. And trading Kevin Durant, because they cannot trade Bradley Beal, is basically the only way that the Phoenix Suns can do that. Therefore, ultimately, it does make sense that the Suns will be making a move involving Kevin Durant, and I expect there to be a lot of suitors once we get closer and closer to the draft. As already Shams Charania yesterday dropped, this is going to be a very active off season, and I do expect Kevin Durant to be one of those names involved this off season. But where will he go? That I believe is the main question for Suns fans, really to kind of decipher and decide on really what can bring us the best return. Now, obviously, the head coaching search is going on as well, and we will have a little bit of an update for you guys as well regarding that just at the end of the video, because once again, a new name was thrown into this list, which is just making things so wild with this Phoenix Suns team. But I ultimately do think that there are going to be a lot of potential suitors for Kevin Durant, and all depending on who the head coach is when they do make that ultimate decision first, I think will ultimately decide what direction they kind of lean in for these players that they're going to be bringing in. Are they going to be going with a little bit more of a developed team, trying to bring in some veterans? Are they going to be leading into a little bit of a younger youth-led team right alongside Devin Booker? That's really the options that we've yet to really see. And I want to know your thoughts down below in the comment section. So before we dive into a team that I think kind of makes sense for Kevin Durant, alongside some others that have been rumored around him, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. But the next part here we're going to dive into is who could potentially the Phoenix Suns get back in some of these moves if they were able to do them. And let's dive into that, as one team that kind of strikes my eye that makes sense for Kevin Durant is the Minnesota Timberwolves, as they were just eliminated from the Western Conference Finals in back-to-back seasons and can definitely use that secondary scoring punch alongside Anthony Edwards to really help this team. And if we want to look at the Timberwolves, obviously offseason roster chart similar to the Phoenix Suns, we can see that one, they are at $199 million, which they are kind of close to the Suns, right around there, right underneath the second apron at this moment. But they clearly can see have a lot of guys in free agency. They have Julius Randle, they have Naz Reid, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Luka Garza on a team option, Josh Minott on a team option, and Joe Ingles. And this is going to be a big offseason for the Minnesota Timberwolves, where they ultimately decide, do they want to bring back Julius Randle, or does Julius Randle want to come back on that player option, or does he want to test out free agency and see if he can get a big long-term deal? And if that's the case, I do believe that one of these big men in Julius Randle or Naz Reid will not be back on the roster and potentially could be involved in a sign and trade involving the Phoenix Suns to get him over here for Kevin Durant to really help out, fill out that need at that power forward or center position. Now, obviously, Julius Randle and Naz Reid are not at the likes of Kevin Durant, but if the Suns were able to get one of those guys to really help out either the forward position or their center position, I think that would be really key. Julius Randle showed in the playoffs this year that he can be a pretty good secondary star, and I think in the NBA, personally, he's best at a third or fourth star, but on this Phoenix Suns team, if he were to be traded here, he could be a solid building block alongside Devin Booker for a little while before they ultimately look to kind of really cash in to get that big-time superstar alongside of him in a season or two. Or they could go the route which I like a little bit better and trying to get a guy in Naz Reid, as Julius Randle kind of really fits in with Anthony Edwards. Maybe they don't want to trade him. Maybe they want to add Kevin Durant alongside of that. Maybe they look to try to get a guy like Naz Reid who can stretch the floor for the Phoenix Suns, also be a solid rim protector, and someone that I would definitely keep an eye on. Now, obviously, there are some other names that would have to be involved kind of in this trade as well. Maybe a Jaden McDaniels, but I feel like the Minnesota Timberwolves have a strong attachment to him. Maybe the Timberwolves are reluctant to trade a guy like, or maybe they're interested in trading a guy like Dante DiVincenzo. And I know that you could say that he plays a similar role like Devin Booker, but coming off the bench for this Phoenix Suns team, he could be a quality shot creator and scorer, and that also allows you to explore a trade with Grayson Allen. Maybe the Suns are interested in a guy in either Rob Dillingham, who was a first-round pick last year, who could be a young scoring guard that maybe they think could play the reins alongside Devin Booker, or maybe the Timberwolves are confident in Rob Dillingham, so they're looking to move off of an older veteran and Mike Conley. Maybe the Phoenix Suns are interested in him. I know he has a little bit of an older age, but he could be a solid playmaking point guard as a quality starter, and I think could kind of hold the reins alongside Devin Booker to once again allow him to go back to that two-guard position that the Suns fans really want to see him be back in, to allow him to play the off-ball position. I feel like the Timberwolves have a lot of interesting stuff that the Suns could offer, and plethora of teams as well, right? We've talked about teams like the San Antonio Spurs, who I think I personally still are the best fit for a Kevin Durant trade, just because the plethora of wings that they have on their roster: Jeremy Sohan, Harrison Barnes, Keldon Johnson, and even a guy in Devin Vassell who could play the two guard, could really all pack a punch for the Phoenix Suns, and I think could be one of the best returns. We also talked about the Rockets with Jabari Smith, but I think in that trade would have to get Jalen Green back, and I think that's what really hinders a trade with the Phoenix Suns and the Houston Rockets at this point. We also have seen, some other teams kind of casted in the dark here. Maybe a Miami Heat get involved, maybe a Denver Nuggets. Those are teams to really keep an eye on, but I do think that obviously with the Oklahoma City Thunder making the NBA Finals, that they're a team to definitely cross off this list at this point for the Phoenix Suns. But definitely keep your eyes out for Kevin Durant and all of that jazz, as definitely some things are going to be circling around him in the next coming weeks as we get closer to the draft and even closer to the offseason in July, which is a little over a month from now. But before we sign out, we do have a little bit of a coaching update here, as I made some videos detailing, the 3 finalists that got revealed, and then there were 2 more names that were dropped as well by Gambo, so I went and included their 5. But now we have another update from Mark Spears here, ladies and gentlemen, and this update lets us know that Suns associate head coach and former NBA head coach David Fizdale is also expected to be part of the 3rd round of interviews for the Phoenix Suns head coaching job. He's obviously the former Grizzlies and Knicks head coach, and he has support of some of the key Suns players as well. And Brendan Clean had a great tweet. What are some of the key Suns players? Because wouldn't that just be Devin Booker? Like, are they keeping Kevin Durant? Is that why they're interested in hiring David Fizdale? What's really going on with this Phoenix Suns team? It ultimately still remains a question. I think it's absolutely crazy. I know Gambo didn't really schedule to tweet out a, report of the real finalists, so I'm not going to fault him on this because he was initially on it with the first 3 guys, and Johnny Bryant, Chris Quinn, and not Sean Sweeney, and not David Bliss, and Jordan Ott, but the amount of updates that we've seen where, we've had 3 different updates with this head coaching search in, 48 hours is absolutely insane. Like, I thought that this was going to be, their easy process, their first thought process, we're taking care of the head coaching search first, we're going to do our job and really solidify everything, but man, it is just, and once again, another roller coaster of emotions. It's the off season, guys. Just give us a little bit of a break. But David Fizdale, once again, Suns assistant head coach last season. If you missed my video yesterday, I talked about some stuff with that the Locked On guys mentioned in their podcast, but Fizdale was an assistant head coach with this Suns team because Budenholzer can really get some of his assistants, and that's a little bit questionable if they're willing to kind of continue to once again interview him after saying change is coming if they keep David Fizdale as their head coach. I would not fault him if he's assistant once again, but I do not want to see them say change is coming, and then by change they just rehire guys that were still in their system. That doesn't make sense. And after all this extensive process, for all of us really diving in and getting excited about all these potential of the outside hires, please don't rip our hearts out and hire someone that was already here when you promised change. But once again, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think about the Kevin Durant stuff and this coaching hire. Make sure to come by in the stream, where Ben and I will be diving in and exploring the Phoenix Suns coaching hire in a little bit of depth and hearing his thoughts on the Phoenix Suns offseason, on what he wants to do with this team. So thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode. I really do appreciate it, and I hope to catch you guys later. Peace out, have a great rest of your day, and go Phoenix Suns.